Hi everyone, let me give you a quick overview of the RPA testing capabilities of the UiPath Test Suite. To do that, let me switch over to Studio Pro, our most advanced IDE for automation here at UiPath. And let's have first a look at this project here called the UiBank Create Loan Process. And as the name of this project already suggests, this project is all about an RPA process called Create Loan Process. And this RPA process is shown here on the right-hand side in our designer panel. And it's a very simple RPA process, but I think it does its job for the sake of this demonstration. So what this RPA process does, it takes two input values, the so-called loan amount and the loan term. So if the loan amount is less than 1K, then we call it a low volume loan. If the loan amount is between 1 and 100K, we call it a mid volume loan. And if the loan amount is greater than 100K, well, then we call it a high volume loan. And the same holds true for the parameter loan term. So if the term is less than 5 years, well, then we are dealing with a short-term loan. And when the loan term is greater than 5 years, then we call it a long-term loan. So what this RPA process does, it takes those two input parameters and then calculates the so-called loan rate. Very simple. Now let me show you how you can create automated test cases for that RPA process here in Studio Pro. Well, all you need to do is you need to navigate to the RPA process itself, make a right click on it, and then you have an option called Create Test Case. Now that is exactly what I did for all these test cases here shown below. And I've created all those 6 test cases in such a way that I'm covering all of these different paths in my RPA process. So whenever we apply this option, create test case on the level of an RPA process, then we create a so-called RPA test case. So let's have a look at one of these RPA test cases. Let's take this one here. So whenever we create an RPA test case, we always provide 3 sections, a given section, a when section, and a then section. Now in the when section, what we do is we invoke the RPA process itself and we expose its arguments. In the so-called given section, that's really up to you what we want to do here, but here you can define, for example, how you launch and configure applications, how you can set up the environment that is then being used for the test case execution. Or you could say, well, you want to prepare the test data that are then being consumed by the process itself during test case execution. And in the then section, what we do is we make verifications. So now let's see what happens when we execute such an automated test case here in Studio Pro. Well, let's do that. In order to do that, just click on Run File and let's now execute it in debug mode. So click on Debug File. What then happens, we kick off the execution of that automated test case, we invoke the process, and then we verify the loan rate that has been produced by that RPA process. Now, when we then go back to the RPA process itself, we immediately see that there are some activities highlighted in green. And these are the activities that have been executed during the execution of the automated test case. And we even provide a metric for that. And this metric is what we call activity coverage. Now, in this case, it just says that 60% of the activities from your RPA workflow have been covered during test execution. Now, and this metric gives you at least an idea of how well you have tested your RPA process at design time here in Studio Pro. So the next step is obvious. What we want to now do is we want to upload all of these test cases here shown on the left-hand side to Orchestrator. How do we do that? Well, just click on Publish, select Publish Test Cases, and then in the Publish dialog, give a name to your package. For example, I want to now go for this, the UiBank Create Loan Process Tests, give it a version, and then just publish it. So what we do in the background is we take all of these test cases, we pack them into a NuGet package, and upload them to Orchestrator. So let's click OK, and let's now go to Orchestrator and let's see what we can do with that package. So whenever you upload test cases as a package to Orchestrator, well, you will see it in the packages section. So if I refresh this table here, you will see in a second that we just uploaded here the package called UiBank Create Loan Process Tests a few seconds ago. And if you click here on Explore Package, you will see in a second that we have all the test cases I've just shown you in Studio Pro as part of that package. So now let's see what we can do with this package here on Orchestrator. Well, one thing we can do is we can create a so-called test set for all the test cases that are part of that package we just uploaded. And that is what I already did here for our create loan process. So I'm talking about this test set here called the UI Bank create loan process. Now let's take a look at the configuration of such a test set. In order to do that, click on Edit. So all you need to do in order to create a test set, you give it a name, you select an environment, that means a set of machines you want to use to execute all the test cases that are part of that test set. Then you select a project. As you can see, I selected one I've just uploaded. Then you click on Next. And when we expand this section, you will see all the test cases you've just seen in Studio Pro. Now, then all these test cases are just waiting to be executed as part of this test set in Orchestrator. So that is what you can truly do here. So let's do that. In order to execute it manually, just click on Execute, confirm that you want to execute. And whenever then we execute a test set here in Orchestrator, we create a so-called test execution. And as you can see, the test cases that are part of that test set are now being executed. So one RPA test case, as you can see, just passed and another one failed. So let's wait until the execution finished so that I can show you what we can do with that information. So let's take a closer look at this test case here called high volume and short-term loan. And this one obviously failed. And this might indicate that our RPA process will fail in production. So let's have a look at this. In order to debug what happened here, just click on View Assertions, and then you will see in the dialog that we immediately show you why this RPA test case failed. Why? Well, because the loan rate we expected from the RPA process was not the one that was given back by the RPA process. And on top of that, we also provide here a full screen screenshot that also allows you to see where exactly the verification failed. So this means you have the option to manually execute a test set. That means a set of test cases you've created and automated in Studio Pro for your RPA process. So that's one way you can do that. Another way is you can schedule the execution of test sets here on Orchestrator. And the third way is to trigger the execution of test sets as part of your build process, for example. But most importantly, what you can do is you can give these test sets into the hands of your software development teams and your IT operations teams. Now, why should you do that? Well, the reason for this is simple. The software development teams, they make changes to software applications. And these software applications are consumed by your RPA process in production. And the same holds true for IT operations teams. IT ops teams make changes to the infrastructure, to the environment, and your RPA process might depend on this environment in your production system. So this means whenever these teams make changes to their software applications or their environments, then these changes might have a bad impact on your RPA process. So by giving the teams the ability to execute test sets you have created to automatically evaluate the quality of your RPA process, you allow these teams to figure out whether the changes they make to their software applications or to their environments might have a bad impact on your RPA process in production. And by doing all this, you proactively, not reactively, react on changes that might break your RPA process in production.